this is the Vishnu K596RGB wireless 10 keyless keyboard from Redragon, and most importantly, it's mechanical. Let's see if it's any good. Now before we get into this video, I'd just like to say that this keyboard was provided to me by Syntec, but in no way am I sponsored by them or by Redragon in any way, or am I being paid to do this video in any way. So all the views in this video are my own, and with that being said, I'd just like to say thank you to the guys at Syntec for actually giving me this keyboard to actually do a review video on. Now the K596 is priced at around $80 or 1,000 Rand depending on where you're from, and it works in either wired or wireless modes, which can be switched by toggling the switch over there. And most importantly, and this is probably my favorite, is the fact that it connects with a 2.4 gigahertz wireless adapter instead of actually using Bluetooth, which makes it a whole lot easier to connect to any desktop, as you don't need a motherboard that actually has wireless capabilities or an external adapter. You can just plug in the adapter you get with the keyboard. And of course, 2.4 gigahertz is just much more stable and much more reliable than a Bluetooth connection, which is great. Now the K596 comes equipped with Automa red mechanical switches and features 10 macro keys, with 5 being located on the side, 5 on the top, as well as you have media keys and this little volume scroller here at the top, which makes it super easy to change the volume of music or any other application without actually having to go out of the application and go into that little Windows button there at the bottom right corner. You can just scroll the wheel up and down to actually change the volume, and you can just press the play, pause, or next button if you're listening to music. And if you're a streamer, this is particularly great because that means that you can play and pause music in between games while you're streaming without having to tab out and trying to find all your music within all of your tabs. And that allows you for a much more natural approach when it comes to streaming. So that allows you more time to actually chat with the people in your chat without having the distraction of always trying to find the music and playing and pausing and trying to remember all of that, when you can just press the little button and it plays the music or it pauses the music. And on the topic of streaming and content creating, the 10 macro keys also come in very handy, as you can actually apply any macros to those. You can open up applications, you can have a bunch of tasks just being done with that, or you can just use it in your OBS software that you stream with. If you stream with something else, you might have the same thing, and you can apply different scenes to different macros, which allows you to change your scenes without having to buy an extra Stream Deck or an application that's very similar to a Stream Deck, as everything is on your keyboard and it's all included in the same price. Now, apart from all of these features, I've actually spent a few days testing this thing out in games and for work, just typing, and there's a lot of positives but also a few negatives, which are not major, but they are there, so let's address those. Now the K596 comes equipped with a 2400 milliamp hour battery, which they say should last you about 10 hours if you're using it on wireless mode. But just keep in mind that that number can deviate, especially if you're using a lot of RGB lights, and if you're constantly using the keyboard, it might be less or it might be more depending on the type of uses and how you use it. I did reach about those hours when I tested out the keyboard myself, but I also didn't use it for 10 hours continuously. I kind of used it for 3 or 4, maybe 5 hours at a time, and then kind of turned it off and turned it on again the next day. But I found that since the charging cable is that long, it isn't that hard to just keep the cable plugged into your PC and having the wire kind of attached to the bottom of my desk, and when I need it, I just grab it, plug it in. And for me in general, when it comes to wireless peripherals, I do tend to plug them in while I'm not using them for specific tasks. That way I can always keep them charged, and they're always fully charged, and I don't get the surprise of maybe sitting mid-game and the controller or your keyboard or whatever just shutting down. Now on the side of looks, this keyboard doesn't particularly scream gaming keyboard, which I actually like, as you can place this keyboard in any setting on any desk, whether it's a modern looking desk or a gaming setup, and it will easily fit in since it's a clean look with no wires, since it's wireless, and it doesn't particularly look gaming like. So even if you have a much more upper class modern looking desk, this keyboard will still fit in nicely without distracting from the modern look of the desk that you have. The K596 also comes with this little plastic wrist rest, which attaches by very powerful magnets, if I do add that. But I've never been a big fan of these, even if they do have a practical purpose. But I have to say that it is, even though it's plastic, it is pretty firm. It's not that flexible, and it does attach, and once it attaches, it's kind of firmly attached. I was kind of worried about the magnets if they were kind of going to dislodge easily, but these magnets are extremely powerful, and you kind of have to pull on them before they actually come off, which is a good thing in my books. And I also have to add that I am a big fan that this is not permanently attached to the keyboard, as this kind of breaks that very nice aesthetic of the keyboard. And for me, I'm not a real big fan of this, but if you have wrist issues and the keyboard might be too high for you, this is a good thing to have, and thank goodness they included it, and thank goodness they didn't permanently attach it to the keyboard. Now, kind of on the plastic aspect, let's kind of talk about the aesthetics of the keyboard as well. The entire keyboard is made out of plastic, and even though it is made out of plastic, it is very sturdy. It doesn't flex easily. It is very hefty as well, which makes it feel like a much more high quality keyboard, especially since it's only made out of plastic. It doesn't actually feel like it's made out of plastic, which is good. Now, another thing while we're on that topic of build quality is that the keys aren't very loose. They are very sturdily attached, so it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like they're loosely wobbling around, which is great. Now, one thing I have to add, that there is a little bit of an OCD inside of me, and that is the fact that they added the Redragon logo off-center on the spacebar. Now, for me personally, I wouldn't have placed the logo on the spacebar off-center. I would have rather tried to put it above these arrow keys. And there's two reasons for this. One is if someone decides to actually replace all of these keys, you lose your Redragon logo, and that is literally the only place, except for this little sticker at the back, where the logo is located at, so you kind of lose all of your branding on your keyboard immediately. And secondly, the fact that it's off-center just doesn't sit well with me. But it's something OCD. It might not bother you, and it is a quick fix. As I said, you can just buy another space key and problem solved. And a little second thing that kind of bothered me is, even though Redragon is nice enough to give you 8 replacement keys, they send you 4 different types. Now, they send you every type of flavor of the Automa switches, which is the blue, the red, the brown, and the black, which is good, but it's also bad. Now, one thing I would say is it's cool that you can actually test out all of these, so you can kind of test them all out, see which ones you like more, whether it's the blue, red, brown, or the black. You can test out the sound, you can test out the tactical effect of the buttons, you can feel how they feel, and in the future maybe replace the reds that you get standard on the keyboard for maybe a blue or a black. And that reason, I think it's good, but for the actual reason of them giving you replacement keys that are different means that once you have to replace more than 2 keys, you're either going to be stuck with more keys that are not the same, so you have 1 or 2 or 3 that might be different, which means they're going to sound different, they're going to feel different. And for me, adding stuff that's different in a keyboard, it's going to drive me crazy. So at that point, I would say that if you need to replace more than 2 keys, I would suggest either buying all new keys, so replace all of the keys on your keyboard, or maybe just going out and buying more of the red switches. If you like the red switches and you want to keep the red switches, you might just have to go out and buy more red switches to actually replace the keys that needs to be replaced. Now, the cable used to actually charge the K596 is a USB Type-C, which is actually gold-plated. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's a braided gold-plated USB cable, which in my opinion is very, very unlikely to get from manufacturers these days. So it's a good quality cable. Another thing is that the cable is extremely long as well, which is good because I have a standing desk. So if I need to charge the keyboard while I'm playing games or while I'm streaming and I'm actually raising the desk, I know that the cable is long enough to actually keep the keyboard plugged in, and I don't have to compromise on whether or not I'm standing and working or whether or not I'm sitting and working just because of the length of the cable. Now, I have to add that I love the fact that the cable is actually plugged in to the front, which makes it a much more cleaner aesthetic, because I have seen other keyboards actually plug in from the side, which is not as clean for me as from the top, because that means if you plug it in It still kind of looks like a keyboard, and it's in the center, which gives it a much more uniform look when plugged in. Now, when it comes to controlling the RGB on the keyboard, you actually have to have the keyboard plugged in via the USB cable to actually access all of the stuff on the software, and which, by the way, is not easy to find. So I left a download link to the software down in the description below, so you don't have to go and try and look for it. You're welcome. And then just to kind of add, you don't have full RGB control on this keyboard. You have a few set colors, and then you have the rainbow effect, which for me wasn't that bad because I like using the rainbow RGB effect anyway. But if you're someone who is looking for specific colors, you might not actually be able to access them on this keyboard, as you have a few set colors. And then of course you also have these RGB strips on the side, which to me are extremely well done. They look good. I like the thin effect of it, and I like the fact that you can actually change that as well. So you're not stuck with a default effect, so you can actually change it to match the rest of your keyboard as well. And then lastly, and once again, this is like a tiny thing, is I'm not a big fan of the look of the software. For me, I would have personally liked a more modern look, a little more simplistic, as this has a very gaming-esque look, but this is a gaming company, and of course, it's personal preference, so you might like it. If you like it, dope. If you don't like it, you're with me. I'm not a big fan of it. Okay, that's it. I'm just not a big fan of it. Now, to kind of wrap up this video, I have to say I've really enjoyed working, playing, and just using this keyboard for the last couple of days. It's an amazingly built keyboard. It works extremely well. It has almost zero input lag even when it is wireless. And the fact that you have the wireless dongle makes it a definite must in my book, as you don't have to worry about connecting it to a Bluetooth enabled device. You can connect it anywhere, you can just plug it in and it works, and you're done. Now for me, it is an extremely good looking keyboard, and it's a well built keyboard, especially in the price range, as this is at the bottom end of the mechanical wireless keyboards. And I would definitely recommend this keyboard for anybody who is looking for a wireless keyboard or just a mechanical keyboard, as it's not that expensive. And there are actually a few mechanical keyboards that are still more expensive than this. And with this, you do get a wireless keyboard, you do get a mechanical keyboard, and you do get all of these additional functions of the macro keys and the media keys, which for me, I am a big fan of. Now, we'll leave links to different websites actually selling this keyboard, also just the Redragon website and the Syntec website, if you want more information on this keyboard or you just want to check out all the other specs. All of that is in the description down below. Also guys, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate that. If you like this video, it just helps the video get pushed by the algorithm, which helps the channel out a lot more than you know. And also, if you want to ask me questions or you just want to come hang out, I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon at 8 p.m. Link for that down in the description below. I'd love to see you guys there. And until next time, cheers.